Imagine, about 15,000 years ago, a huge glacial lake in the Mission Valley. This lake was once impounded by ice. Periodically, that ice lifted, allowing tremendous outburst floods that scoured the landscape from here all the way to the Pacific Ocean, forever changing the landscape in Montana and Washington states. Let's look for evidence in the present landscape for those events here at the Camas Prairie. Okay, here we are out in the Mission Valley. You can see off the distance to the left the Mission Mountains coming up out of the valley. And then straight ahead in front of me here on this hillside, sort of below the tree line on the hills, you can see these horizontal, subtle horizontal lines. Those are quite interesting. They're like little steps in the hillside going all the way across that tan to tannish green hillside. And then if you turn around 180 degrees behind, you can see this tan, light-colored, layered material. And then right down here at our feet, you can see that material is quite fine-grained and can just crumble right apart in my hand, and it's very dusty. This is amazing. This is all evidence for Glacial Lake Missoula, or a glacial lake like Glacial Lake Missoula that was in the Mission Valley during the time of the last glaciation. So there was these are sort of high water stands that you see on the hillside of those lines. That's how the lake level, as it fluctuated with time. And then at my feet and behind here, you can see this dusty material. Those are lake sediments, so material that was depositing out of the lake. And along the Mission Mountain front, you can also see evidence for the high water stands of this glacial lake. So what was happening was you had water, meltwater from the glaciers impounded by the ice, and so it created these big lakes, and then you'd have enough hydraulic pressure to lift up the ice or break through the ice and have these catastrophic floods that went to the north and to the west, all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. And so this is one of the amazing stories that starts in Montana, a story of geology in the western US. And here we see evidence for it in the Mission Valley with these high water stands of Glacial Lake Missoula, or a lake like it, like I said, and these lake deposits. Just incredible to be out here and imagining the amount of water that was stored in this valley before it burst out and sculpted the landscape all the way across Washington state to the ocean. Just incredible to see. Out here near the Camas Prairie, this hillside straight down the road here has really good evidence for the different lake levels of these impounded glacial lakes as they fluctuated over time with outburst floods, filling with glacial melt, that sort of thing. So those parallel ridges in the hillside give you a really good sense how deep this water was. Just an incredible amount of water in this phenomenally interesting geologic event. I'm now out in an area called the Camas Prairie, and here is just a fascinating flat area that shows evidence of the outburst floods from Glacial Lake Missoula and the other lakes that may have been like it from back towards Missoula and the Mission Valley. So the water came rushing through this area, and on the floor of this valley right in front of us, you can see what are called mega dunes or mega ripples. And so the water rushing across the surface creates ripples, much like you see in a river or sometimes at the beach as the tide comes in. These are mega ripples, so the amplitude of these is much, much bigger, and you can see them in the vegetation of the landscape. This hummocky terrain going up and down are actually formed from the water rushing over this landscape. And as you follow the highway in the distance, up there you can see that it has to go through a gap. So the water actually burst a gap through this bedrock in the area and that allowed the water to flush out and keep going to the north and to the west all across Washington state, all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So these mega ripples are just fascinating to see in the landscape and incredible evidence for massive glacial outburst floods in this part of Montana.